Racist judge finds a black girl for a minor offense, looking at her with clear disdain. His voice is sharp, and his judgment is swift, as if her race has already decided her fate. The room goes quiet as everyone watches, sensing the injustice hanging in the air. The girl stands, her eyes fixed forward, not allowing herself to break under the weight of the moment. Her hands grip the edges of the bench for support as the judge continues, delivering a fine that feels more like punishment for her skin color than for any actual wrongdoing. Just as the tension builds and the final decision seems sealed, the girl speaks up, her voice steady but filled with a quiet power. She calmly reveals that she's not just any teenager in this courtroom. She's the president's daughter. The judge's smug expression falters, his confidence shattered as the words sink in. The courtroom is frozen. How could he have made such an error? What does this revelation mean for the justice system, and how will the public react to his blatant racism? The girl stands tall, unshaken, as the entire room realizes the truth. This is more than just a legal mistake. It's a moment of reckoning. What do you think should happen next? Let us know in the comments. The judge slams his gavel down, his voice cold as he says, "Guilty." His eyes are focused on the young black girl standing in front of him. She had been accused of something small, yet the judge seemed to be using his power to make an example out of her. He gave her a hard look, filled with judgment. For a second, everything is still. The girl stands straight, trying to stay calm. The judge, however, looks pleased with himself, like he has already won. The room is silent, waiting to see what the girl will do next. Then she speaks, her voice steady but powerful. "I'm the president's daughter." The words shock the room. The judge's face changes from cold confidence to disbelief. He stops mid-sentence, staring at her as if he can't quite process what she just said. The girl doesn't flinch, standing there with quiet strength. The judge stammers, his usual authority crumbling. "What?" His voice cracks as he tries to understand what's happening. The girl just looks at him, not backing down. She's still calm, still composed. The people in the room exchange uneasy glances. The judge had just made a huge mistake. His eyes dart around, unsure of what to do next. The girl continues to stand tall, her words still ringing in the air. "You were so quick to judge me," she says, her words cutting through the silence. "But now that you know who I am, does it still feel the same?" The judge looks down at his papers, flustered, unable to respond. His apology seems forced and weak, almost as if he knows he can't take back what he's done. The girl's quiet power and calmness are too much for him to handle. The judge stumbles over his words, trying to regain control, but the room knows the truth. The girl has shown him for what he is, quick to judge, quick to make assumptions, and blind to the humanity of the person standing before him. As the girl stands there, no longer worried, the judge realizes the weight of what's happened. There's no going back for him. The moment of power has shifted, and he is now the one exposed, while the girl remains unmoved. The judge, still trying to regain his composure, stands frozen. The courtroom is quiet, all eyes on the girl who just revealed her powerful connection. She's not just any young girl, she's the president's daughter. The room feels tense, with the judge's face a mixture of disbelief and regret. He slowly lowers his gavel, trying to save face. I didn't know," he stammers, his voice cracking. The girl remains calm, her gaze unwavering. "Clearly," she responds, her voice firm and composed. Her posture is strong, showing no signs of the intimidation the judge had hoped to impose on her. The judge can't hide his unease now, feeling the weight of his mistake. Her words linger in the air. You were so quick to judge me. But now you're scrambling to make things right. The courtroom is filled with silence, as everyone witnesses the once confident judge falter under the pressure of the truth. People start whispering among themselves. Some are shocked, while others seem pleased to see justice unfolding in real time. The girl continues to stand tall, despite the tension in the room. Her identity, something so simple yet powerful, has completely changed the dynamics of the situation. The judge, now sweating slightly, turns to his assistants, trying to find a way to undo the damage. But his attempts are futile. The girl, still unshaken, looks at him one last time. You didn't just judge me for my actions. You judged me for my appearance, my background. And now you know who I really am. The judge's expression is one of shame, as his previous harshness fades into nothingness. His decision no longer holds the same weight, now that he knows who she really is. There's no coming back from his mistake. Your Honor, perhaps it's time to reassess your approach, the girl adds, her tone unwavering. With those words, she turns and walks out of the courtroom, leaving behind a judge who now fully understands the consequences of his actions. The courtroom stays silent for a long moment. People exchange glances, unsure of what will happen next. But all of them now realize that the judge's misplaced assumptions have cost him dearly. The girl's calmness, strength, and undeniable confidence in the face of adversity have exposed not just the judge's racism, but the flaws in a system that allowed such assumptions to take root. As the young girl leaves the courtroom, the tension in the air lingers. The judge stands frozen at his podium, still trying to process the shock of the revelation. The room remains silent, all eyes now on him as he contemplates his next move. He knows there's no escaping the fallout of his actions. The girl's words echo in his ears. You judged me by my appearance. Now you see who I am. He can't shake off the feeling of regret washing over him. For a brief moment, he forgets about the proceedings and loses himself in thought, wondering how it came to this. Suddenly, the door to the courtroom opens again, and the girl steps back inside, her posture as confident as before. She's no longer the intimidated teen in front of the judge. She's a young woman who understands her worth and place in the world. The room shifts, and the judge clears his throat, trying to regain control. I apologize for my earlier actions, he says, though his voice lacks conviction. He looks around the room at the faces staring back at him, many still filled with disbelief. The girl looks directly at him, unwavering. An apology is only the first step, Your Honor. It's not enough to simply say the words. You need to show you understand why what you did was wrong. The weight of her words hangs in the air. The judge shifts uncomfortably in his seat, but his pride won't let him back down completely. I'm aware of my mistake. I didn't have all the facts. I made an assumption that was unfair. Her eyes narrow slightly. An assumption based on my skin color, my status, and not the person standing in front of you. You acted without considering who I truly am. The room grows quiet again. People look at one another, feeling the magnitude of the moment. The judge, struggling to maintain his authority, attempts to make amends. I will ensure this doesn't happen again. But I can't undo what's been done. The girl holds his gaze, her expression unyielding. No, you can't undo it. But you can change the way you approach others. You can learn from this and take steps to prevent it from happening again. There's a long pause, and the judge finally nods, his shoulders slumping. The weight of his actions is evident, and he knows that it's going to take more than words to regain his integrity. The girl's words hang in the air, but the room is no longer filled with tension. There's a sense of resolution now, a feeling that change may be possible. The judge doesn't speak again, but seems to reflect on her advice. "Thank you," she says quietly, turning toward the door. "That's all I ask." As she exits the courtroom, the room fills with murmurs. The judge doesn't move, his head lowered as he processes everything that has just happened. He knows that this was more than just a courtroom incident. It was a lesson that will change the way he views the world. The girl may have walked out, but her presence will be felt for a long time. And for the judge, this is just the beginning of his journey to redemption. The judge sits in his office later that day, alone with his thoughts. The girl's words still echo in his mind, and he can't seem to shake off the weight of what happened in the courtroom. Her grace, her confidence, they were impossible to ignore. And now he's left with the painful realization that he has much to learn. As he stares at the files on his desk, his reflection in the polished wood feels foreign to him. For the first time in a long time, he wonders if the years he spent as a judge truly prepared him for moments like these. The law was always black and white to him, but the situation with the girl had shown him just how much gray there really is in the world. But before he can go any further down that path, there's a knock at the door. It's his assistant, standing in the doorway with a serious expression. "Your Honor, there's someone here to see you," she says. He looks up, irritated. He's not sure he's ready to face anyone today, especially after what happened. But the assistant doesn't wait for a response, and before he can protest, a figure steps into the room. It's the girl. She's standing tall, confident, and unbothered. She looks just as composed as she did earlier, if not more so. "Can I help you?" the judge asks, his voice now tinged with uncertainty. He wasn't expecting her to show up again, but here she is. She smiles, but it's not a smile of victory. It's a smile of understanding, as if she already knows exactly what he's thinking. "I wanted to make sure you understand the lesson I tried to teach you earlier," she says, her voice calm but firm. The judge, still uneasy, leans back in his chair. "What lesson do you think I need to learn?" The girl steps forward, her presence filling the room. The lesson is simple. A person's worth is not determined by their skin color or status. It's determined by their character, by how they treat others, and how they stand up for what's right. The judge shifts uncomfortably. "I've always tried to do my job with fairness." She nods, but doesn't miss a beat. "Fairness is only part of it. You were fair in your ruling, yes. But it was your assumptions that caused harm. It's the assumptions that need to be corrected." There's a long pause. The judge remains quiet, taking in her words. For once, he's not sure how to respond. But the girl doesn't seem to mind. She's not asking for an apology. She's simply laying out the truth, hoping he'll absorb it. "I've spent my whole life fighting for fairness," she continues, "but fairness alone doesn't undo injustice. You need to recognize the bias that exists within all of us, myself included. We all have a responsibility to look deeper, beyond what's obvious, and truly understand the world around us." The judge listens intently, finally realizing the depth of her wisdom. He can no longer ignore the uncomfortable truth that's been staring him in the face. "I'm starting to understand," he says quietly. "This isn't just about one ruling or one person. It's about something much bigger." She nods again, this time with a more sincere smile. "Exactly. And the fact that you're willing to learn shows that you're already changing." For the first time in a long while, the judge feels something shift inside him. It's not a feeling of guilt or shame, but one of hope. Hope that he can truly make a difference, both in his own life and in the lives of others. With that, the girl turns to leave, but before she walks out the door, she turns back and says, "Remember, It's not enough to just apologize. You need to act on what you've learned. As she walks away, the judge watches her go, a deep sense of gratitude filling his chest. He knows that this moment will stay with him forever, not just because of the powerful lesson she taught him, but because of the change he now feels in his heart. The courtroom is silent. The judge has just handed down a fine to the black girl, and her parents sit in disbelief. The young girl, her voice trembling, speaks up again. "Why is this happening to me, Your Honor?" Her question lingers in the air as the judge, clearly unsettled, looks at her with a sense of guilt creeping over him. The judge leans back in his chair, realizing something that shakes him to his core. "I've made a mistake," he mutters to himself. The girl's words are not just a plea for justice, but a mirror showing him how his own prejudices have shaped his decisions. The court, once filled with tension, now carries an odd silence. The judge, sitting at his bench, tries to recall how he had gotten to this point. The young girl had done nothing wrong, yet she was being treated unfairly. He had handed down a decision clouded by bias. He was supposed to uphold justice, but in this case, he had failed her. As the scene unfolds, the girl's parents stand up, ready to confront the judge for his unjust decision. The father's voice rises. "This is not what we taught our daughter. You are supposed to represent fairness." The mother, calm yet firm, steps forward, speaking with unwavering conviction. She does not deserve this. What happened to her will not stand. The courtroom, a place where justice is expected to reign, is now a stage for a powerful shift. The judge's gaze falters, the weight of his actions heavy in his mind. "I made an error," he admits. "I acted with prejudice, and that is something I cannot undo unless I take responsibility." A sudden realization hits him. This moment, this very conversation, will set the stage for his own transformation. The young girl's courage has forced him to face the uncomfortable truth that even those who are entrusted with the law can be flawed, especially when clouded by ingrained biases. The judge rises from his seat, his expression no longer one of authority, but of a man coming to terms with his own mistakes. He walks over to the girl and her parents, his voice steady, but filled with newfound understanding. "I owe you an apology," he begins, looking directly at the young girl. "I failed you, and I promise to correct this." With that, he orders the fine to be lifted, and more importantly, announces his intent to undergo training to address unconscious bias. The decision sends a ripple through the room, as people realize that the judge has taken the first step toward true justice. The family, though still in shock, begins to breathe easier. For the first time, they see a glimmer of hope that justice may be served, not just for them, but for everyone who has ever been wronged. As the scene closes, the judge, though humbled, is resolute. This is a moment of change, not only for him, but for the very system he represents. He understands now that true justice comes from self-awareness and the willingness to learn and grow. The judge's words echo in the courtroom as he apologizes, lifting the fine, and announcing his commitment to training on unconscious bias. The room is still, almost expectant. The tension has shifted from confrontation to a quiet hope. The black girl and her parents exchange looks, still processing what just happened. They know that the fight isn't over, but this small victory feels monumental. The young girl's mother stands up first, her voice steady, though laced with pride. "Thank you for admitting your mistake, Judge. This isn't just about us. It's about everyone who's ever been unfairly treated because of who they are." Her words carry weight in the room, as a few of the onlookers nod in agreement. The judge, visibly moved, acknowledges her with a somber nod. As the family begins to gather their things, the young girl, still in awe of the unexpected turn of events, looks up at her parents. Her mother smiles at her, the pride clear in her eyes. "I'm proud of you," she says softly. The girl's lips curl into a small but genuine smile, as if realizing for the first time that her voice truly matters. Outside the courtroom, the family steps into the hallway. The girl walks alongside her parents, feeling an unfamiliar sense of empowerment. The weight of the situation hasn't quite sunk in yet, but she knows that something bigger than just this courtroom moment has happened. The injustice she faced has sparked a change, not just in the judge, but in the people who witnessed it. The family reaches the elevator. Just before the doors close, a woman in the hallway, who had been in the courtroom, approaches them. "I just wanted to say that you handled that with such grace. You've made a difference today. Keep speaking up," she says with sincerity. The girl's eyes widen slightly, taken aback by the woman's kind words. She smiles, feeling the first hints of a change she didn't expect. As the elevator doors close and the family begins their quiet ride down, the girl's thoughts race. The impact of what had just happened is dawning on her. She's not just a victim of an unjust system. Today, she was part of changing that system. Back in the courtroom, the judge remains seated, processing the events. He's not the same man who had entered the room that morning. This moment, this humbling experience, has reshaped him. He knows that his learning is just beginning, but it's a start. And for the first time, he feels like he's on the path toward real justice. As the scene closes, the judge's internal dialogue echoes, "I can't undo the past, but I can change the future." The moment is quiet, but the gravity of it lingers. The seeds of change have been planted, and now the judge's commitment to justice begins in earnest. The courtroom is still, the tension palpable as the judge slowly realizes the magnitude of his actions. The confident expression he once wore has now been replaced with uncertainty and discomfort. His hands tremble as he lowers his gavel. "I regret my previous decision," he stammers, his voice lacking the authority it had earlier. He clears his throat and tries again, but the words sound hollow. "I failed to consider all the facts and acted out of prejudice." The girl, standing tall beside her mother, watches the judge carefully. His words seem genuine, but the damage has already been done. The fine was unfair, and the humiliation it caused could never be erased with an apology. But she remains silent, her presence a quiet testament to her strength and dignity. The judge, still visibly uncomfortable, avoids making eye contact, knowing his actions have now been exposed for what they truly were, a display of racial prejudice. The room, once tense, now hums with murmurs of disbelief. Some in the gallery are already starting to change their perception of the judge. Others are still processing the unfolding events, but it's clear that the ripple effect of this moment has shaken the foundations of what they thought they knew about justice. The girl stands with her head held high, her mother by her side, their strength now undeniable. The girl's mother, her voice calm but filled with authority, addresses the courtroom. "We've learned many lessons today," she begins, her eyes sweeping the room. First, that justice isn't always guaranteed, and second, that we must always stand up for what's right, no matter the odds. She places a hand on her daughter's shoulder, a gesture of quiet pride. But also, we've learned that no matter how difficult the fight, it's worth it, because standing up to injustice doesn't just change our lives, it changes the world around us. The girl nods, her expression unwavering. "We are here because we believe in equality, in fairness," she says, her voice steady but strong. "And no matter what, We will continue to fight for that." Her words echo throughout the room, a reminder that the fight for justice is ongoing and that each individual has the power to make a difference, no matter their age or background. As the girl and her mother stand united, their message is clear. Justice, equality, and accountability are essential values that everyone should hold dear. It is not enough for the system to simply claim to uphold these principles. They must be actively pursued and protected for all. The room falls silent, the weight of their words hanging in the air. For a moment, no one speaks, the realization settling in that this was not just a small legal matter, but a reminder of the greater societal issues that must be addressed. The judge, now recognizing the true impact of his actions, nods solemnly in agreement. He acknowledges that his position of power was used to perpetuate injustice, but he also understands that it is his responsibility to be better and to hold himself accountable. As the girl and her mother walk out of the courtroom, they are not just a mother and daughter. They are symbols of resilience, strength, and the unwavering fight for justice. The girl's courage in the face of adversity, and her mother's wisdom in knowing when and how to fight, inspire everyone around them. Their bond is unbreakable, a source of power that shows what it means to stand up for one's rights, regardless of the challenges. In the hallways outside the courtroom, people whisper about what they've witnessed. The events have left an impression on everyone in the room. For many, it's a moment they won't forget. The girl, once just a victim of racial prejudice, is now a beacon of hope and inspiration for others facing discrimination. Her mother's steady guidance and wisdom serve as a reminder that change is possible, that the fight for equality is not just about winning battles, but about ensuring a future where everyone has a chance at justice, no matter their background or skin color.